Hey, Zizzle.
Hey, Zizzle.
Hey, Zizzle. Nice game.
Two world spots are sealed away as 4 more teams are left in the quest for that third spot and their chance at the title of LCS champion. It's good to be back, Mark Z. It's good to hear your voice after the internet gods kept me away just yesterday. How you guys doing? How you guys holding up in another 4-day week of LCS playoffs? This new format, man, just delivers day after day.
Yeah, I'm excited to see teams start getting knocked out, the dreams crushed. Those are my favorite parts of the year, is when all that stuff comes crashing down.
Yeah, that's right. We are into some more elimination best-of-5s. Yesterday, Team Liquid swept Golden Guardians, sending them to the lower bracket where they will face off and play for their playoff lives versus TSM tomorrow. Today, though, we have Cloud9 looking to keep their chance at a title alive as they face off against Evil Geniuses. Now, yesterday, as I mentioned, the internet gods did me dirty. So I'll need a little bit of a recap. What the heck happened in TO versus Golden Guardians? I had to watch the majority of it from my cell phone.
A lot of us were looking forward to a pretty close series. We thought this would be a lot of early games going Golden Guardians' favor, and then maybe Team Liquid would claw back. That is a little bit how it went, but it was more dominant than I think most of us were anticipating. Game 1 was insanely slow, and kind of Team Liquid forced their will, which forced Golden Guardians to go for this all-in, 5-range, early game focus comp that got off to the races a little bit, but then became harder and harder to execute in the mid-game.
All you got to know, Dash, is that if you've been watching Core JJ all season long, he got barred again.
Yeah.
He got him 2 games in a row, and he got to do his thing.
Can't let the man have that champion, to say the least.
On top of that all, by Game 3, it felt like things were starting to go Team Liquid's favor, but that's when Huhi and FBI stepped up. They had some great games, some solo kills down the bot lane. That kind of showed that, it wasn't a fluke what happened versus Team Liquid, or TSM, but it was too little, too late. Team Liquid was just working too well together.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching you guys on the desk yesterday talking a lot about how Team Liquid is the team that makes the fewest mistakes. And so, a team like Golden Guardians that needs to find those openings and really extend advantages, it can be a tall order when up against, such a rock-solid team like Team Liquid. But that series also brought with it some other interesting stuff, as we saw in some of those replays. Lilia popping up again for us here on the side of Golden Guardians.
Yeah, we got to see the first Lilia top in LCS, and it started doing the bopping pretty early on. They did the good TF dive early, but as the game progressed, it was a little bit less about Lilia bopping and more about her just getting killed over and over by Broxa, because Lilia is a good champion into melee. She's going to be able to harass and kind of use her movement speed to get out of trading patterns, but the problem with Lilia is she's also really squishy, so this lends kind of the counter to if you pick assassins, you can pretty much camp it. It doesn't build enough HP to survive all these ganks, and that's exactly what Broxa did.
Broxa really punished the Lilia, and I personally am a bigger fan of Lilia in the jungle. I think, like we see here, she's just too easy to kill in the top lane. You do offer a lot of flexibility, but I think Golden Guardians put her in the top because of the surprising priority Team Liquid put on Mordekaiser. They opened up first picking Mordekaiser, Dash. That is never have been seen before.
Yeah, but you got to give credit to Broxa as well. I think myself and other people were looking at him as the weakness, as people were saying on Team Liquid. But he dominated the early game in Game 1, keeping down closer the entire time, and then actually found a ton of kills in Game 2 on the Lilia. And Game 3 found more all over the map. So he had a great performance.
Yeah, great to see him step up on that Lilia point. It's seen more play in Europe as well as their playoffs are underway. So it's definitely a pick that's rising in popularity and priority. We'll wait to see it have a little bit more success here, But when it comes to and throughout playoffs, we've seen a lot of power picks deciding series one way or the other. So to give us his definitive list of the most OP champions in the postseason, here's Prowley's perfect OP picks for playoffs, please.
Oh, man, just look at this. It's perfectly ordered S tier to C tier. I mean, just give me whatever arguments you guys have because they're probably wrong and you just agree with everything.
I agree with.
There's so much wrong here. I don't know where to begin.
Oh, my gosh. All right, yeah, start. All right, we'll start at the top. You hating on the Caitlyn S
No,
tier?
I like the Caitlyn. I think she's very good, but
Okay.
not every team can pilot
So we'll
her.
start where we can all agree that Caitlyn is an S tier pick.
Yeah, she's a lone S tier pick. I think she defines the bot lane meta right now. She just works way too well with range supports. She also works really well in the fact that it's a dragon meta. And most importantly, her weakness was kind of her mid-game trough. But now when you go the Infinity Edge and Storm Razors build, the double BF sword kind of items, you don't really have that poor mid-game. So I think there's not really a clear weakness for her, and she's just a lane bullet.
So I'll say I think Senna should be up there with the Caitlyn because she's at least getting played. At least the Senna gets through. The Caitlyn barely ends up going through, and Senna is just cracked right now. I think she's actually just really strong.
But
that's more in favor
I
of
was
me
gonna say,
then.
well, I
if
wanted her
if
in
Caitlyn's
S.
not even getting through, that means she's broke.
We agree with your Caitlyn point.
Right. So,
okay.
but the
Oh,
argument is
so
that
you mean the Ashe.
the argument is Senna should also be S tier, Crumbs?
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Senna's not S tier. I mean, I'll argue that she maybe deserves an A tier next to the Ashe because I think she's a good answer to the Caitlyn. But I think before yesterday, I thought it was more of just a Bang and Turtle champion. I do agree Senna should be maybe higher on the list.
Okay, next up, I want to talk about Shen. This is a pick
B
that
tier?
has been seen a lot. Yeah, Crumb.
He's my B tier.
Why is he B tier, Prowley?
All right, so, I mean, I don't think he's really worth a ban a lot of the time. I think he's a solid top lane. He's in B tier because he does change the meta, but he has so many comfortable counter picks that also fit in the meta. So I don't see him as a perfect blind, and I don't see him working with every team.
I guess my tier system is different. I would put B as a mediocre pick. I think because the way you described it, I'm like, oh,
these are all OP picks.
so these are all
None of them
OP.
can be bad.
Okay.
Okay,
it's
so
like
Yeah, and this is the
Yeah, 'cause
rating of
I
how
did not
OP they are.
understand. I was like, how is Shen B? He's super strong. Okay, in
Yeah.
terms of the OPs, I guess that makes more sense. I don't really have too much to add. I think he's global. He's a front line. He's engaged. He's weak side. You can use him in a lot of different team comps. I think everyone should learn to play with Shen. Whether or not your team is good with him is different. I mean,
That's what I was going to say. Shen does feel like one of those champions that can shift on that list depending on which player has him, which team has him.
You need extra steps to take the advantages with Shen. When you pick Caitlyn, it's pretty easy to get the advantages and really abuse how strong she is. Whereas with Shen, you have to be able to play aggressive. You have to survive the laning phase of the counter. So there's a lot more work that needs to be put to make Shen viable.
All right, well, that's one global. Let's hop to another, TF.
Yeah, so TF is the top of my A tier, mostly because he just ruins any team composition that you're playing against if you're not properly prepared. If you just draft something that has low engage or something that can't punish the Twisted Fate, he's going to take over a game. So I put him really high because if you play against a TF player, it's probably banned. And if he's not a TF player, you need to be prepared for what changes if they pick TF, right? There's going to be DPS top, maybe a squishy jungler, so that's why I have it very high.
I disagree. I think TF is a little overrated. After the latest round of nerfs, I think he's become a little bit harder to execute on. We've seen how important Dragon Soul stacking is. He doesn't actually really help you too much with that win condition unless it's blowing open bot lane. Him going to top side, eventually you'll have to swap that pressure down, and if you didn't snowball your top enough, you're just left with a mid laner who is not very good at team fighting. And so I think it can work, but this is what you're saying. I think this is what you were saying about Shen for me, where I'm like, yeah, if it works with your team and you have a carry top or something like that, maybe this can be good, but his weakness in team fighting is a concern for me.
All right, let's talk about Kalista. This one surprised me, I have to admit, because of the statistics surrounding Kalista having seen a more than, higher than 50% presence with no picks, indicating all of those have been banned. So teams are unwilling to play against it and let it go through. But you have it pretty low on the list.
Yeah, so I don't have it crazy high because we honestly haven't seen it too recently. But last time we saw it, it's still one of the only like lane dominant snowball bot lanes that you have. It's also, other than Ashe, one of the most consistent engages in bot lane you can grab. So the fact that he has like snowball potential, engage potential, and we're going around with Tactical and FBI kind of being these new AD carries coming out, they're also very good on Kalista. So I have Kalista very high, or higher than it should be because it hasn't been picked yet, just because of its potential.
I mean, another strength of Kalista is she is an anti-inting champion. You can bail somebody that's about to feed and save them, which really goes a long way, because we know how supports love to get in the mix when they're playing these engaged champions, and suddenly they just get popped right away, forget to use the stone plate. We've seen it happen a million times. Kalista just makes sure that you don't die for no reason.
As a reminder, since we haven't seen the list in a bit, the Kalista was in B tier, top of the B tier, alongside Azir and Shen. Last and final champion to talk about here on your list is Renekton, all the way down in the C tier.
Oh, baby!
Alongside LeBlanc and Morgana.
Yeah. So Renekton is very bottom. The reason why I put him on this list is because looking at all the top laners, they all have a decent amount of counter picks. Renekton, however, is probably the safest blue side blind pick top laner you can get. And that's so valuable when counter pick meta is like kind of in season a bit, where you'll see a lot of last picks going to top lane. Renekton is a pick where you can pick it. You don't really need bans to make sure it doesn't counter. Not many people play hard counters to it, so it's just always going to be okay.
I have a problem with this one because, to me, you tell me Renekton is OP, it's like you telling me that Nidalee is OP. Yeah, in LPL. In LPL, Renekton is OP. We don't have that many good Renekton players to actually abuse him to the level that we see in an... And let alone the counters either. Like, you pick him in LPL, Quinn. Suddenly your Renekton's just trashed. So I think that Renekton here is not OP. Yeah, I would not put him in the OP tier.
Preach.
But it's a problem of the players, not the champion.
Yeah, that pick has been struggling, to say the least. I want to get a final word for both Crumbs and Mark. Any picks that you feel maybe didn't make the list entirely that do belong, or that we might expect, jump into the OP conversation over the coming week?
Well, he didn't have Lilia. Yeah, Lilia and Hecarim I would keep an eye on. I don't know if Hecarim's on there.
No, Hecarim is not on there. Lilia, Hecarim.
Set's pretty darn busted.
Okay, and Set. All right. So then Senna was one that you mentioned probably might start creeping in there just based on the more recency teams looking to play her a bit more. All right, we're going to step away, but as we go, here's Azael with another great moment in fake history.
In spring 2016, Immortals made their debut in the LCS, and their performance was nothing short of pure domination. They only dropped a single game that split, and the team went into spring playoffs as the #1 seed and favorites to take it all. In their first series, they would face TSM, and there was palpable excitement to see how Immortals would handle their first challenge. Immortals' prep had clearly paid off, as Huni locked in a surprise Lucian top in Game 1. And you know what? It totally worked. Wow, look at that! TSM were completely caught off guard and had no answer to the Lucian, eventually being swept out of playoff contention. It was clear to everyone who had watched, something special happened that day. A revolution was coming to League of Legends. It didn't stop there though. The top lane revolution swept through not only the LCS and later Worlds, but also solo queue, leading to anyone not playing a marksman in the top lane to be mass reported and shunned by their teammates. Riot would eventually be forced to address this with the still controversial change of sending anyone who queued a marksman directly into the top lane. With one man so clearly at the center of this game-sweeping change, Riot gave a nod to Huni, with the Lucian update being clearly modeled on the beloved star. Huni would have his life story adapted for the silver screen, and was thrust into the highest echelon of celebrity. He had ascended beyond League of Legends, and his brand became world famous, known simply as Huni. Huni's shoes, clothes, and other accessories simply couldn't be produced fast as they were selling, and no kid could be without their famous Huni action figure. This has been another chapter of great moments in fake history.
Welcome back to the LCS Countdown. As we jump into the series, we look at the Samsung SSD Fast 5 to see how these teams compare when it comes to getting those early game objectives. Everything from first tower to first Drake, Herald, Baron, and of course, that all-important Dragon Soul.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of list, I'm not surprised that it favors Cloud9. They had such a dominant early half of Summer Split. But the one thing that EG is beating them on is first tower take. They beat them by 2 seconds. And this is just surprising because Cloud9's MO was strong early game, strong mid game, and they usually snowball with globals. Evil Geniuses, on the other hand, like, kind of had a rocky split. They had to go through roster swaps. And then they're also just kind of a slower team, especially relative to Cloud9. So the fact that they won here is definitely shocking.
I think the thing that stands out to me the most, though, is the Dragon Soul timer. It's 6 minutes, basically, in favor of C9. And on top of that, if you look at the total number of souls gotten over the course of the split, and this includes playoff series, C9 has 9 souls. EG only has 5, which is very, very low given how important that is in the meta. They're slow to get it, and then when they do get it, it's just not that often. So this is a big concern for me in this series, is how effectively they're going to be able to stack Drakes. I thought they were better at it in the 100 Thieves series, but they're going to have to stay focused, and it's a concern when you start looking at how EG actually likes to play.
It's 5 Dragon Souls out of 13 wins, so they've won more games without the soul than with, which is pretty impressive considering every team is playing around this objective.
I think what's wild, though, too, is that timing. That timing on the Dragon Soul mark. Because when you look at the first Dragon time take by each team,
like 6 minutes.
Yeah, it's 6:38 for Cloud9, being tied for third in the league. EG, 7 minutes. Right? So they're not that far behind on the first Dragon take, but the fact that Cloud9 is actually stacking for that soul and securing the soul as a win condition a whole 5 to 6 minutes sooner is just pretty astronomical. And so it will put a lot of focus on the Dragon as an objective today, especially considering the way the meta has been going. Probably, I know you've been kind of, preaching from the mountaintops about that, the fact that the game has gotten a little bit more bot-centric and that Dragon and soul is so much an important win condition right now in the game of League of Legends. But ahead of his match versus Cloud9, Evil Geniuses coach Artemis had this to say about the bounce back from the start of playoffs.
We were learning and adjusting in that series. Team's feeling good. I think morale is very high. We definitely were disappointed with our loss against FlyQuest. We felt like we could have won that series very easily. After game 1 and game 2, we made some pretty serious adjustments when it came to our gameplay and our draft. We made 3 draft adjustments and kind of 1 approach adjustment, and we're very happy with kind of how we were learning and adjusting in that series. And I think in game 5 we could have gone either way. So definitely a crushing loss for us, but we really improved a ton in that series, and we learned a lot about how we want to approach the game, how we want to be approaching draft within the best of 5. And I think we showed that improvement against 100 Thieves, beating them pretty convincingly 3-0. So morale is high, confidence is high, and we're looking forward to this matchup against Cloud9. I've often said that the difference between a best of 5 and a best of 1 is how you adapt mid-series and how you change your draft and how you change your gameplay. And Cloud9 was so confident that their read on the patch was correct that they didn't really adapt at all. So for me, we're definitely very confident after seeing their best of 5 against FlyQuest. FlyQuest is a dominant team. They're extremely good. They're very effective at the strategies that they play. And we were able to play them pretty closely in a 5-game series that could have gone either way. So it was definitely nice to see them give Cloud9 a thrashing, what could have easily been a 3-0. That's not to say that we're not going to see a strong FlyQuest today, though, because I think that for us, we learned a lot from our best of 5 against FlyQuest within that series, the adaptations we made, and we're able to take that and translate that to our practice this week and improve a lot in a very short amount of time. So Cloud9 only has 1 day to make adjustments from this best of 5 against FlyQuest, but if they do and if they change and if they learn, I do think that they could be a much stronger team. But still, I think that we're confident in our prep and we're confident in our play as well. How do I live evil? I think I live evil by knocking teams out of playoffs. I don't want to go home. None of us here want to go home. And I think that for us, the mantra is kind of die another day. We didn't want to die against 100 Thieves last weekend. We certainly don't want to die today against Cloud9. So looking forward to knocking them out of playoffs and continuing to live evil.
Welcome back to the LCS Countdown, where we're getting ready for a matchup that many people did not expect to see today. Cloud9 in the lower bracket facing off against Evil Geniuses. How did we get here?
I mean, like Artemis kind of mentioned it in the interview where he's bringing up adaptation and a best of 5. This is something Cloud9 I thought was really good at. Usually their drafts and best of 5s are really interesting to watch, but against FlyQuest, they drafted the same bot lane every single game. They got invaded every single game without a plan, and they played GP Shin matchup 3 times, and then they gave Shin all 4 games. So it really was, they didn't deviate from when they were losing, they didn't change their game plan, and they didn't change their picks.
And that felt acceptable based off the first game where Blabber was Nocturne and died like 4 times in 10 minutes, whatever it was. run it back and see what happens. But by game 2 and game 3 and game 4, it's like you're losing the early game every single time. You need to change things up.
And that very much was not happening, and a lot of it a product of, Blabber being focused in the jungle. We talk about those invades being crafted by FlyQuest. It was a very targeted plan to put him on the back foot.
It's attacking where C9 was the strongest, relying on the Blabber-Nissi combination. Why not attack Blabber before Nissi can help him out in the level 1 invade? So it was a really smart plan from FlyQuest, and we have to consider that FlyQuest went to 5 against this Evil Geniuses lineup. The team that beat C9 in a very convincing fashion. So I am a little bit worried in this matchup for C9 because the things that were bubbling, that were causing trouble in the back half of the summer split just showed up in full form in the series against FlyQuest, and that is really scary.
Yeah, shut down the MVP candidate before he can ever get going. I mean, we talked about the game 1 invade, but there was the game 2 and game 3 where they were taking his buffs away or killing the bot lane even. So that was super effective. I think that's the biggest thing that C9 needs to shore up in this series is get Blabber off the ground, but also some of those mid-game draft adaptations like you heard probably talking about. Ezreal, Yumi, maybe a little bit too weak in the early game to contest those Drakes. They were giving them up constantly to FlyQuest.
Well, so Mark, you're already touching on some of the things that Cloud9 needs to do to avoid elimination today as both of these teams' tournament lives are on the line in that sense. But where does that shoring up for Blabber come from? Is it in the draft with more flexibility there? Is it in the play style? Is it about track having level 1 plans themselves? Where does it come from?
I would say it starts with having your own level 1 plans, know where you're weakest, how this other team would invade you, and then defend against it. So if you think that they have Gragas support or Rakan support, something that can hop walls level 1, watch out for that cheese stuff because it's playoffs and you just need to get wins however you can. That will happen. If it's, a Braum Ezreal lane or something that just has an insane level 1 that can walk straight in, ward early, see that they're doing this, try and start away from their strong points. There's a million things you can try and do different, and they actually start to do that. You can also do your own invades and just split map or do these other situations. They just have to scout way more proactively.
Yeah, again, I'll call back to that week 2 segment where Crumbs was breaking down the level 1 invades from Cloud9 themselves, saying this is the team that's been doing it. Everyone else needs to get on the train. It looks like some other teams have gotten on the train, and it's helped them out. EG versus Cloud9, though, there's a little bit of a history element as well, just because Svenskar and Golden Glue Zazel, all of these guys used to play on Cloud9, and now they're looking at knocking them out of Summer Split and World's Contention.
Oh, it'd be such a revenge story for EG because Pring barely matters compared to what the damage that can be done today for taking these guys out of C9 and now being potentially the ones to knock them out of the tournament. It would just be giant.
It's pretty crazy to think that C9 was the #1 team in spring. C9, EG was the 3rd place team in spring. You had Jack memeing on Twitter the whole time, no refunds, and both them kind of joking about how many good players were in the C9 organization. Now they're fighting for their lives. It's not even like they're fighting for a world spot right now. They're fighting to get the chance to play another best of 5 to then get worlds, and their dream is over today.
Yeah, and again, remember that those 3 guys were a part of the crew that dragged Cloud9 from 9th back into contention just a couple years ago, and so they've been in this position before, underdogs in a matchup, but looking to upset and actually following through on that. I want to take a look now a little microscopically on some of the lanes. Let's go to the top lane here because Huni versus Licorice always promises to be an interesting one, particularly when you take a look at some of these statistics, most notably that CSD column.
A big difference of 28, really, that separates the two. It's just preposterous to see a lead that giant this early on. But you have to consider that Huni did play a little bit of Shen, but then when you add the games that he had Hecarim, where he was bodying solo, getting solo kills, I wonder how on earth is he falling so far behind in CS compared to Licorice?
I mean, this is just kind of Huni style. I feel like he's such a volatile player, so when he does well, he's going to do really well. Yes. But yeah, when you track CS, it's of all the games, and he's not consistently getting CS. He's consistently fighting all the time. So sometimes it's like the CS goes down, but the kills go up. It's like it's this weird seesaw that happens with him.
And the next time I go down 15 CS in lane, I'm just typing
Huni
style. I'm just telling my team, don't worry, I'm going Huni style.
I think that's why you see them prioritizing weak side with Shen as well. I don't want to see Licorice on GP. It's not proactive enough to actually slam the lane. Please pick something that's actually going to, if that's how this matchup's going to go, where Licorice is that far ahead, I want something that's more proactive in the early game, not just farming up.
All right, fair enough, fair enough. Well, let's also talk about the bot lane. Again, the meta has seemed to shifted in that direction. We've talked about the importance of Drakes, and so Evil Geniuses, who I want to focus in on here, because we've expressed some concern around, their synergy issues in the bot lane.
So the concern is that they're not playing the champions that are predominantly in the meta, the Ashe, the Caitlyn, and they're really just trying to play losing matchups. But when you look at these players, historically, that is what they have been the best at, in playing losing lanes. You've got Bang, who on SKT, when he World 1 Championships, he never needed any resources. He was fine to just play even and try to survive. Same thing with Zeyzal when he was playing on C9 before. With Sneaky, they were never about the laning phase. It was always to get out of that and assist the rest of the team. Now that the meta has shifted towards that side of the map, EG has to figure out, how do we circumvent the fact that these champions are so important? Well, they're just banning Ashe and Caitlyn and picking Senna, picking Ezreal. And we even got to see a little bit of Lucian, which was the SKT special for Bang that could show up again if they want to just obliterate the bot lane.
That's what I want to see more of, not this kind of weak side stuff. I mean, this is an order of most played, so, Aphelios is dead in the meta. Bang's still playing Ezreal a little bit. I don't want to see TK, Yuumi, and Braum. That's a very weak early game, and it's hard to convert that into Drakes. I want to see them step up and play more aggressive. These are some of your best players. Bang is arguably the best player on EG. You can't wait until 20 minutes to unlock him.
I mean,
we'll have to see if
Senna will be really useful.
Yeah, Senna been rising in priority across all of our best of fives. We'll see if Evil Geniuses has found the strategies to unlock them. We're going to get predictions up onto the screen as we get ready to toss over to the casters, but I want to make sure we get you all on record with who you think is going to take it, and Crumbs is calling it.
Yeah.
Evil Geniuses over C9 in 3-1 fashion. Real quick. Why?
Hurt me, man. C9 has so much more to lose. Think of the players this year. They have everything to lose. There is so much pressure on these players that are trying to get to Worlds, and EG has everything to gain. They don't care. They could just play completely loose, completely relaxed, and C9 already showed that they have no adaptation during this series.
Crumbs is calling the crumble under pressure. With that, we're going to hand it over to Riv and Kobe to get us into Game 1 of Evil Geniuses versus Cloud9.